This week on the Three Rings podcast.
And I was front of the line and I popped my hand up and I said, what's a pirouette? Don't want to go to my grave with regret. And I think that scares me so much that I have to do it. Every breath that we made, every step that we took, there was a purpose behind it. When you see your own work on stage, there is nothing like it.
Welcome to episode 31 of the Three Rings podcast. My name's Stuart Bishop and I'm here with my fellow director, Bailey J. Muir.
Before we get into this week's episode, hit subscribe on the channel, give us a like on the video, and turn on your notification bell up top so you know all about next week.
This week's guest is Christopher Tendai, an up-and-coming theatre choreographer breathing a fresh new life into the imagery of how we see theatre and dance productions, with credits including Closer to Heaven, Bear a Pop Opera, Rent, Children of Eden and Scroogelicous. Christopher is also the artistic director for the award-winning CTC Dance Company, known for their thought-provoking works such as Wonderland In Alice, Identity and Inked. Chris is currently the resident choreographer for the 50th anniversary of Drew McOnie's Olivier Award-winning Jesus Christ Superstar. Hello, Chris. Good to see you, mate.
Hello. How you doing?
I'm fantastic. I'm really happy to have you on. Chris, meet Bailey. Bailey, meet Chris. You guys have never met before, have you?
Yeah, I don't think we've ever crossed paths. Good to have you on. Thank you for coming and joining us. Looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, likewise.
So, I mean, we've got a load of questions for you. I've known you for a while, but I'm going to pretend as if I don't know you and ask you, we're going to ask some thought-provoking questions as well as just sort of finding out everything about how you've got to this point. But we like to start the podcast with our guests. We've started this recently, actually, sort of dropping in a question which gets you having to work your brain straight away. And I apologise for this because we're not actually filming when we normally film. Because of your busy schedule, we're filming in the morning. So if that's why I'm not looking my greatest, that's probably why, if anyone's thinking that. So Chris, first question. Who is Christopher Tendai?
A very good question. I think I'm also exploring that as well at the moment. But yeah, if you said, who is Christopher Tendai, you would probably think workaholic. And I think I always say, I'm just out here trying to make it. So probably if people asked who I was, they'll get that phrase as well. But I would say approachable, wanting to better the world in some small or hopefully big way. And just trying to get all the experiences I can as possible.
Awesome. So let's rewind back to the very, very start. How did you first get into dance, into the arts? Like, was that an element of your childhood, or is there a moment you can point to when, oh, that's cool, I've not thought of that? What is that journey for you?
Yeah, so I started off quite late actually. So I kind of took inspiration from my older sister who started in the acting world, went off to university to study and then got her master's at drama school at East 15. And I think kind of seeing her journey got me kind of like, oh yeah, I want to try this and get into that. So in secondary school I took drama GCSE. That's when they introduced the BTEC kind of diplomas there. So I kind of was the first year of our BTEC Performing Arts as well. But I was very much into singing at that time. I was like, singing, want to become a pop artist, that's the way for me. And it wasn't until my drama teacher, because I was actually going to go to, get my A-levels, being told by your parents, you've got to get this, you've got to get your qualifications here. And my drama teacher, his name Mr. Anderson, and he came to me and he was like, Chris, you need to go to this place. I'm not having you go there. You're going to go to this place, which is a college called Milton Mowbray. and they kind of were the highlight of getting your performing arts BTEC diploma, level 4 or 5, and it was like the one in the Midlands, like the main one that you go to. So yeah, I was like, you know what, let's see how this goes. And I originally got in on the acting course, as I was kind of following in my sister's footsteps. And it wasn't until the first day, I remember, next door, I just heard everyone singing on the musical theatre course. And I went to the principal that evening and I was like, I want to be in there. I think I've made a mistake. Is there any way that I can go in there, sort this out? And fortunately, they allowed me to go onto that course. So that's kind of, I delved into the realm of musical theatre, and being 16 years of age, no clue about musicals at all. I just liked to sing, and then I was introduced to dancing, and it was very much a develop your creativity rather than straight technique, your classes for this, and this. So I think that's definitely where my creative brain kind of I got to explore, I got to learn, I got to grow in that element. And then it came to second year.
Hold on, I'm just going to unpack on something there because that's interesting. Yes. It's so interesting to hear that there was a sort of a somebody who kind of gave you some advice and made sure that you went that direction. If that, because I had sort of the same with a drama teacher as well, actually. If that drama teacher hadn't have been there, where was there any other options for a young Christopher Tendai? Was there anything else that you were thinking, oh, well, maybe if I didn't do that, I would go and be a fireman or something, or was it, or at that point you were just sort of, okay, this is what's inspiring me, I'm just going to go to that? But if he hadn't have been there, what else would it have been?
So I really wanted to be a primary school teacher. And when I was younger, I always used to, play teacher. So I had my whiteboard, I had my whiteboard pens, all that kind of stuff, pretending I had my own classroom. So I think probably something around that route. I don't know what might have happened with, attempting the music career as a pop artist, who knows? But yeah, I really wanted to be a teacher. And actually my mum is she's a secondary school teacher. So I think, again, taking like inspiration from that as well, from the people in my households. But yeah, literally, it was literally, that one person that said, no, you're good at this. And I think that's something that, when I was younger, didn't really hear that a lot, of going through lots of different things, but actually to hear someone from the outside be like, no, you have potential in this, do it, was, yeah, I'm so grateful to him. And I've been back a few times over the years back to my secondary school back in Leicester, and it's always so nice to see those teachers that that really said, you're going to make it. So it's really nice to go back and see them, and to say
have you gone back when they've, like, in recent times where it's obvious you've become, not just, I'm now training and I'm doing stuff, now I'm actually successful? Have you been back since then and they've sort
of not recently, to be honest. I think I went there a few, kind of when I was starting out,
right?
But even then, someone from Leicester going to drama school, I think it was a massive thing in itself. And I went to a sports specialist secondary school, so kind of dancing and doing the acting, all that kind of stuff wasn't really like the vibe of the school. So yeah, it was really nice to go back, and they asked me to perform as well, so I kind of sang in front of some of the year groups, and just to have that kind of respect from them, and even from people from from my PE sessions, and my PE teachers being there, being like, well done, was great. So yeah, it was really great. It was a really nice full circle moment, and to show other young people who are there that might not think that it's for them, that it could be, which was really great, really full circle moment.
Cool. So I want to keep going with this like trajectory of how your career developed, how you got into the industry. So you were going to take us into that period of you being in the second year of your musical theatre course. What was the continuation of that training for you?
Yes. So in my second year, that's when everyone started saying, I'm going to audition for drama school. And I was like, what's that? So again, really like just plodding along, having fun in this new world. And yeah, from what I took from my friends who were there who were auditioning, that it's like the next step, it's the big step of moving to London. Like London is the place to be. And again, I was like, yeah, I want to do that too. I want to try that, see how that goes. And I remember my first audition was for arts educational school, and got into that, ready to go, thinking, okay, I've learned a bit about dance, a bit about singing and acting. I've got my song ready, all this kind of stuff. And they put us into 3 lines, single file lines, and they were like, okay, going to do a double pirouette to the left, a double pirouette to the right. And I was front of the line, and I popped my hand up and I said, what's a pirouette? So they had to show me and to break it down for me.
Oh no!
And that will always forever be in my brain of how I started. When someone says to me like, "Oh, I can't start late," and all this, I'll be like, "No, let me tell you a story."
What did you do? What did you do? Like, did you just go for it?
Just went for it. Seeing how it went. And I think, and then after that, we did like this choreography, a bit of choreography there, which I try to throw myself into. And when you get the people in auditions, so they're like, "Oh my gosh, yeah, you're really good at that, yeah." So you kind of hype yourself up a little bit, and then they do like they have a break to kind of talk about everyone, and then you get a letter outside, and it's like a letter to say, thanks so much, but no, or thank you, would like to see you in the afternoon. And
while you're there.
while you're there. So we were outside in the hallway. You've got your first, second, third years walking by, seeing us all there. And I've come from Leicester, all the way to like West London to come here. And of course, I get the letter that says, "Thank you, but no, thank you." So off we go back to London, back to Leicester, and that's kind of where I was like, okay. So I actually asked someone who was in the year above me and said, I need ballet lessons. I need some form of technical lessons. So during my lunch breaks, a friend of mine would help me out, and we will go into a studio in my break times just to go through stuff. And I paid her on the down low to say thank you so much. But it would just really help me be like, okay, I need to understand this, because this place is great, of full of creativity, and my heart will always be here. But I'm like, I need to know what these pirouettes are. I need to know what these technical terms are. So
it didn't crush you then, because often if people go to an audition before they should, it can have devastating effect. You were thinking the opposite, right? It's inspiring me to, I want to get better.
Yeah, and I think that's a trait of mine. I think it's my greatest strength, but also my greatest weakness. And no matter what people tell me, I'm going to do the thing, whether it's the right or wrong decision. But I always like to see it as my strength, and kind of learn from all these opportunities that have come my way. So so got those in, and I auditioned for Mount View, Guildford School of Acting, London School of Musical Theatre, but my heart was set on Guildford School of Acting. So that was like the one that I wanted to go to. So I did the others. Went for Mount View. I think it was didn't get in, but it was kind of a mutual. This place isn't right for me. And London School of Musical Theatre. I sang a song from Lion King, and they kind of said, we're intrigued by you. So come back in like 6 months' time and audition for us again. So I kind of had that on the back burner, and that's a year development course. So that was kind of there on the back burner, and went to GSA, and like this is the one. So fortunately, I got a recall from that day, so I was ecstatic. This is the place. And the recall is it was a 2-day thing. So you're there for the entire weekend, where you have to pay for your hotel, got to be there, pay for your food, all that kind of stuff, and then go back for the next day. So, did all the things, did your acting classes, your monologues, your singing rounds, your dance round, all that kind of stuff. And again, it's you finish the day and then you wait outside and they call you in for a meeting. So it was like, you've got to get that meeting. And of course, I did not get the meeting. So, and then you've got some of the people who were there at the college being like, no, don't worry, there are very few, but sometimes, people do get in without having the meeting. So I was like, please, please. However, I then got a letter again to say, you didn't get in, which was, I believe it was handed to me on the day as well. So kind of then I was like soul crushed. And it was, when you get your ticket as well, like your advanced single, you've got to get on that train. And I was like, no, I can't stay here. I've got to go. So I tried to get on the early train, but then the ticket guy was there and he was mean. So then I had to pay for another ticket. So again, being like, 17, 18, having to pay, it must have been like 50 quid at the time. And just being like, great, I've got cut and I've had to pay a fine. So I was just like,
welcome to the real life.
Literally, I was like, wow, my eyes are open. And then I had my final audition, which was for the Erdang Academy. And not going to lie, I found this on Google. Didn't really know much about the college, just kind of found it. Was like, you know what, let's see what happens. And it was my last one. And I was like, you know what, I'm just going to go for it, see what happens. Ended up getting a recall. And I was like, okay, this is great. And I think a great thing about there is if you get a recall, you're automatically on the diploma course. So it's like technically you've got a place, but then you get to audition then for the degree course and to see if you are, eligible for funding. So that was great. So
sorry, just so we can get a timeline on this. What year is this?
So this was 2011, like 2010, 2011. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, like went to my recall and it went really well. And I think when you get those feelings of like, yeah, okay, I have a strong feeling about this. And I managed to get into London School of Musical Theatre as well. And got my letter to say, yes, you're on the degree course from the Erdang, and you've got a grant from the council who fund people from, low represented backgrounds. So I was like, this is amazing. This is great. And, I was like, yes, this is the way. This is the way. I'm excited for it. And it was very much my parents, again, not in the field whatsoever. So when I'm like, oh my gosh, I got in, they're like, great. So, I'm not paying for you to go to London. So make sure you find a way for yourself to get there. So I'm like, good. All right, we can do that. So yeah, kind of worked as much as I could and kind of accepted my place there. and kind of just, took my whole life to London. And my first year, I was living in Elephant and Castle. What a place to be for your first time in London. So yeah, and then kind of had my 3 years there, and I like my eyes were opened, to proper technical training of me thinking I'm, this singer who's going to be a pop artist, and then to be like, okay, so your technique's not good. This isn't good. This isn't good. Right, let's try this. So again, I was like, shattered of, oh gosh, I, painted this picture, but it was really great. Like it was probably one of the hardest times of my life, I would say, of taking this new form and this new art and this new craft of what I thought I knew of it, and it was just completely expanded. So I just made sure I was a sponge and just took every ounce, asked all the questions. Like I was that annoying person there, being like, "Can I ask this? Can I ask this? Can I ask this?" I just knew that I had to, and I said to myself, there's people who have been doing this since they were 3 years old, went to these dance schools around their area, and by the time I graduated, I had to be as good, if not better, than these people. So every chance I got, I was at the college from like 7:45 to like 9:30, 10 when the building closed, because I had to make it. And I had my head was set on this thing, which I just couldn't shy away from. So I'm very glad that I followed through with it, all through the blood, sweat, and tears. The kind of to graduate and kind of delve into this industry, which I think is another learning curve in itself. Really, I think you don't really know the industry until you're in it. You're doing those auditions and you're doing those jobs and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that was kind of my journey into the to professional working in the industry. Yeah,
I'd love to ask you about like how you viewed networking whilst you were at Erdang. Myself and Stuart, funnily enough, on the podcast last week, were discussing like all the best ways to get onto like agencies' books, and we were saying with like a graduate showcase how important it is for choreographers, directors, agents to actually know who you are before they come along. And I often think with Erdang, because it's right there in the centre of London, it's like an unparalleled networking opportunity compared to the other colleges. Even when we look at like Bird or Lane, that you can say ish London, it's nowhere near as like in the scene as Erdang is. How was that for you when you were training? Were you aware of needing to like network with your teachers and their connections, etc.? Or were you just like, I'm just here to train? What was going on with your thought process?
That's a really good question. And they definitely brought a lot of people in. Like we were very fortunate in terms of, in terms of agents, we had private sessions with them, we had private auditions with them, we had, panels from different commercial agencies, casting directors come in, we had like choreographer from Lion King come in. So actually, it was great, actually. However, I think a thing I would have liked to know more about is that initial networking thing, because I think you're so you have to audition to get the job, and I think that was definitely the main thing that was kind of screwed in, and that was the way. There was no other kind of pathways of how to get in, and I don't know if that might have been me with me just tunnel vision with like this. But I feel like that wasn't, I see in other drama schools as well of, these other routes to get where you want to be. Like there's so many different routes and so many other, wonderful things that are there. And, even in my head, people who were choreographers or, people who were facilitators in the arts, for me it was like, oh, if you're a performer, which is up here, and a choreographer and everyone else is down here. And I just feel like that was screwed into my head somehow, even though, I had a love for choreography then. Still it was like, oh, well, for some reason you're not performing. So then you go down to do these other jobs. And I think it was that kind of, that those little bits of information I feel like I wasn't aware of, or I feel like I could have been taught more within that, about how to network, how to understand who to go through, how to format an email. You do your CVs, you do all of that, but it was mainly about you audition and you get the job, and that's it. So we were, very fortunate of meeting all these fantastic people. However, I think utilizing it, I think for me, I wasn't very aware of that at the time, and kind of going into the industry. And even still, it's like, to get an agent, like, you need to get an agent. But again, it's like, okay, what questions should I ask the agent? How do I present myself in front of the agent, all that kind of stuff. It's just like, you go to the interview and you get an agent, and then they get your job. So from experience of having these interviews with different agents, and I was very naughty actually. I was going to sign with a certain agency to be like, yep, they're the one, and another one popped up, and it was like, okay, maybe let's have this, see how it goes. And we just got on like a house on fire. And I was like, oh, they're actually the one that I want to go with. And, the kind of language then to go back to the other one and to say, I'm so sorry, I found somebody else. And literally, it was just before I was about to sign the contract. So it was literally all a go. They were very nice to me, like, they were like, make sure you don't do this again in the future, but, have a great career. Yeah. Fortunately, but, for me, I was just like, oh, on to the next one, there we go, I don't know, I'm just thinking of, tunnel vision rather than thinking about the repercussions of what it has, and how I am seen within the industry. So, yes, going back to your question, I think we had so many people, but I think I wish I knew more about connecting and networking with people. Then you kind of getting that light bulb moment 4 years into your career, being like, okay, I need to think about this. Yeah,
it's so interesting, Bailey. It's I mean, we've literally tonight. It goes live. Is it the agent one tonight? What goes live? Or is it the email one that we did?
Well, they're both the same, aren't they? A section of the agent one is like how to structure email, etc.
That's right. Isn't it interesting that we've just literally done that, and then we've heard Chris's story to it sort of, it begs the question whether students should, we do give that, we give one of the options of taking your time to find out who the agents are, and that, and it just seems like if you're gonna make mistakes, it's gonna be in that first sort of little period when you're finishing college, because you've got no idea. And to think that there's an agent out there probably who's like, oh yeah, Chris Tendai, oh yeah, he's very, very unprofessional. He didn't, he went to sign with us and then he didn't. But when you're that age, you've just got no idea, and you're being told by your college this, and you're being told by other people this, and then you meet professionals who say, no, don't do any of that. It's very, very tricky. So you side with a musical theatre agent, and in your head, did you know about commercial agents? Did you, how did that first sort of 6 months out of college go?
Yeah, so we did know about commercial agents, and it was kind of, again, seeing that in the college, me being like, I want to do both. I want to do it all. And I think having connection, without knowing, you've got teachers who are part of these agencies that can, put in a good word for you and all that kind of stuff. And, I think there were some really good opportunities where we got to work with some professional gigs for commercial agents as well whilst we were in our third year. I think is, always good to have that experience. Yeah, so the first 6 months, signed with my MT agent, and somehow I always get into a kerfuffle with things. And my first job was Hairspray, and it was an island tour of it. And so within the college, we have our, college agents before you go out, who kind of submit you through your third year. And I was doing a charity event, and the choreographer was casting director for casting director for what am I trying to say? She wasn't the casting director. She helped out on the days for a specific one who was doing Hairspray, and she's like, oh, you've not been seen for it. I was like, no, I've not been seen. I would love to, go in. I've asked about it, but I've not received anything. And she's like, oh, I'll get you in. Yeah. Just send me your stuff, and I'll get you in. So I got my audition through her. She's a lovely person. Her name's Claire, and I booked the job through that. So I've got the casting director calling me, being like, "Oh, just so you know, you're going to get an offer." Da, 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 da. So I'm in this predicament of, okay, I've just booked this job. I've got my agent from the college. Okay, what do I do? So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go to the agent and hopefully try and get some money, more money here and there, and see how we go. And it just kind of blew up really. She's like, oh, I've submitted you. I don't know why they went through you instead. Da 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 da. And I'm literally like, I just want to go to the job. So it was all okay, and kind of went through her anyway. And I had people being like, "Mate, you could have done this through your own, yourself, not pay commission." But I just thought, you know what, no, I'll stick to my morals and go through my agent, who has got me lots of auditions, and hopefully can, in case of anything happening, can be there for me. So my first job was Hairspray, and went to Cork in Ireland to kind of rehearse and kind of put the first scent up in there, and then we went to Derry after that. So again, that was like really fun. There was a few people that I had known from college who kind of were in my third year when I was first year, so it's like nice to work with them. And just kind of the experience of the first job is just, I think there's nothing like it, of being like, wow, you've made it, you're in the thing, you're doing the thing. You experiences, the stresses of the first time, of, in that job as well, we lost our choreographer. He had to be let go, and then the director started choreographing, and it was one of those.
I thought you meant, like, when you say you lost him, like he died or something.
Oh no. He's very much alive.
That would have been an experience for your first job.
But so things like that. So experiencing these things, that are just like inevitable, that you just can't control. It's just a great learning curve, and working with people, being with people, 24/7, all that kind of stuff. You just learn so much. And then it kind of hits you when it finishes. So it's about away for 3 months, away from the UK, doing this X, Y, and Z, and then you come back, and then it's like, okay, this is where we get into it. And I think the way that London was built up to me was, it was non-stop. You have to keep going, you have to keep working, keep hustling, keep striving to get the next job. And it was, I think, something that was imprinted in me was all, hearing that you've got to work consecutively. You have to be successful. And it's like, when you're not in a job, you're not successful. But when you're in a job, you are successful. So I think I for some reason had that mentality, and it didn't matter to me at that point of what the job would entail. I just wanted a job. So again, you know, we've all seen the people in like audition rooms when they're like, just give it to me, you know, I'll work really hard for you, and I'll do this, and I'll do this. And I think that was me for a lot of years. Going into a room and being like, whoa, you need to calm down. So yes, had, you know, lots and lots of auditions. That is, no, I think I auditioned for Brudai afterwards, actually. So I had I got a cruise contract to go and do a cruise ship around German. Well, it was a German cruise line, and then to go around Europe. So for me, I was like, another job, right? I'm going, regardless of everything else, regardless of, you know, the little seeds I've been planting. I'm like, I'm gone. So I did that, and it was, you know, I had a great rehearsal period. Loved Germany. Germany is like one of the places that is, you know, has my heart, and you know, I really want to move there in the next few years to kind of, you know, set up a shop there as well. But then going into the cruise world, I now know that cruise ships are not for me, and that's okay. Going, you know, having I get seasick quite easily, and for some reason, you know, I didn't care about that. It was about the job. So I remember doing some shows, and even like the slightest bit, I was on the floor like, no, I can't do it. I can't do it. Please, please. Yeah, and you know, lots of experience just being so contained in like this own little bubble. It was crazy. You know, very fortunate to see all these lovely places around Europe. But I just knew. I think that also then sparked the flame of, you know, I want to get West End. I want to, you know, be part of these, you know, commercial agencies out there, and you know, really take this seriously and take the plunge of, you know, if it takes me years to do it, you know, I'm going to do it. I'm going to make that decision. So I literally skipped off the cruise ship with joy, going back to London to like, okay, this is the thing. This is the thing. We're back. We're back. So started again with auditioning. And I remember getting Dreamgirls, the musical audition on my birthday, and I was like, "This is a sign, you know, this is it. It's coming back, and this is it." Got a few, you know, got a few recalls, but ended up didn't get the job. And I think there was a lot of that going on. Of there was always a specific point where I would always get cut, and it was always like the singing rounds. Always get to the singing rounds, and it was either like they'll go really good or really bad. And at the same time, I was like, right, I'm going to audition for commercial agencies. And that's when I auditioned for Lavrudae, and kind of came onto the scene with them. Well, yourself, right there. And that's how like our relationship started from there, and actually doing a really great course with Christina Andrea, who I still see as Mama Bear, and will always, you know, I really opened my eyes to stuff. And I think from that kind of, I think it was 6-week program that we did, and I think just from opening, you know, my eyes to, you know, looking at yourself as a business, looking at yourself as an entrepreneur, bettering your skills, and then really, you know, understanding the networking aspects of it, and you know, hearing this from someone who is doing the absolute most and taking, you know, the commercial sector by storm. It was just so nice. It was so nice to have someone who really loved to give back to others. And I think what I really appreciated about that was Christina is just so warm, and I think from there it really allowed me to explore that kind of realm and to really gain confidence in that. As I think there's, you know, lots of different courses out there, and some are absolutely amazing, and then there are some out there that are literally like, you've got to do this, this, and this. If you don't, then you're going to fail. And it's just, you know, regarding people's mental health and the way that people learn, is so different. It's understanding how, you know, you can help those people who have come to you, confided in you, and, you know, sometimes have paid an extortionate amount of money. You know, the service has to be there. And I mean, this course was free. It was great, you know, and to get all of this, you know, knowledge from that was just amazing. And I think really, yeah, just helped me understand kind of what I wanted to do. And you know, that was both in musical theatre and going into commercial as well. So I mean, I've stemmed off the 6 months, you know, I've probably into a year and a bit of graduating at the moment. But yeah, I think that those 6 months were, my eyes were just open. And I think whilst it was, yes, I had worked, you know, I think a lot of, you know, the stresses and of living in London, just living as an adult, you know, this is the first time where you come out of essentially education, and it's like, okay, how do I function then? And I think, you know, from these institutions, you know, going down, right, you know, primary school, secondary school, you're not really taught how to live, essentially. You know, it's just the generic, you know, you get your degree, you get a job, you get married, you have kids, you have a house, and that's it. When it's actually like, right, okay, but what about this? You know, what about tax? Or what about my credit score? What about, you know, all of these kind of things? How, you know, language of how to speak to different people, you know, people skills, all this kind of stuff is that, you know, you don't really learn until you're out there doing it and kind of, you know, making your mistakes and learning from them, essentially. So yeah, I think it was those 6 months were very hard for me, actually. Was where my mentality was, and what the pressure that I put on myself as well. Yeah.
It's interesting because when I first met you, you know, you were part of Christina's. Would it have been the agency audition first, or was it? Did you get onto Christina's mentor program? I can't remember which order, but
yeah, maybe I think it was the program first, and then it was the audition at the end, because that's what we were striving for. That was
right.
the end goal. Yes, that was
right.
it. Yeah.
And through those programs, we were always looking, even though it was about individual people, there was a goal for us as an agency to find new choreographers, to find new teachers, to find people who could, who we felt had more than just wanting to be a performer. And if they didn't know that, we were wanting to pull that out of them. And I remember when you we gave you some teaching opportunities, and you know, it was obvious to me that you were going to go much further than just being a performer. You had this kind of different kind of work ethic. And I'm gonna admit something to you, which I possibly didn't. I don't know if I said it to you at the time, but when you started doing some choreography, your own little things in the background, and then you got a show. I can't remember what show it was, which meant that you went away. And at the time, I actually, in my head, was like, that's a mistake. That is a mistake. What's he going to do that for? He's not going to have enough time to be able to do that and build up his projects. However, you, Mr. Tendai, are the example I give when I talk about hard work and just getting on with things and not having any kind of excuses. Because no matter what you were doing, if you were in a show, you would go do the show, and instead of sort of going out on the piss all night, and then I know a lot of West End people do this, they kind of then have a leisurely morning until they have to get into their hour call. You were doing that at whatever West End show it was you were doing, or whatever tour it was, you were doing that at the same time during the day. You were then running you were building up CTC, you were building up your choreography and your projects. And this is absolutely the reason why you're so successful, and why although I'm sure you're probably that you're probably doing that all the time, but to the outside it looks like you're just doing that. Tell us about that. Why didn't you take those leisurely mornings? What you were already in a show. What was inspired? Why were you wanting to do more at that point when to most performers, just doing the show, whatever you were in, would have been the absolute, that's it, I'm doing it, I'm successful?
Good question. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I wish I could just do that. I think it's a mindset thing. And you know what? I do think this is where I've taken a lot from you, Stuart, and taken a lot from my time at Rudai of, hearing that I'm able to be an entrepreneur and I'm able to do, X, Y, and Z. And I think it's the fact of, we are in control of our own universe, and what you put out, you will receive back. And I think I've always taken that, and I've always taken something I always have in the back of my mind is that I don't want to go to my grave with regret. And I think that scares me so much that I have to do it. I have to do the thing, whether it succeeds or whether it fails. So I think, having that, and I think there's throughout my career, so many pathways have opened up, or pathways that I didn't know existed. And I think being able to see that just really gave me the drive to continue. And I've had that passion of, I want to make it to the West End. That's a dream of mine. And then, another dream of mine is to go, to be a choreographer, to be a successful choreographer. Hopefully, I'm still on that pathway at the moment, but to get my Olivier award and to have that, to have that career where I can, jobs come to me rather than chasing the jobs. So I think kind of on my pathway and kind of seeing these elements of being able to teach and give back, and to be a facilitator, to be able to, perform, and then to be able to create my own work. Pathways that I was like, I want to do these things. And I felt like the industry is such a hard game, and it's like, okay, well, you're going to see me, whether you like it or not. And I think that's why I really grafted hard. And again, I took that from what I was doing at college as well. Like, 7:45 to that 10 o'clock I was there. I was always doing something and developing my craft. I know and, hope that one day it will then start to work by itself, which I'm very fortunate now is that, that's happening now. And the clogs are turning from all of that work that I did. And I just cannot not see something through. And I think that's not, seeing something and be like, understanding when to walk away. I think that for me, that's a different thing of, it's not properly working, that's fine. However, if it's, with like CTC of, you can't really do something for a year and be like, oh, well, it's not, I'm not big and famous now. What's the point? As it takes so much, it takes time to build the foundation of any business. And looking at myself as a business as well, it's going to take time. It's going to, and I think that has really driven me to get those things, because if I'm just waking up at midday to then go and do the show and to say, oh well, my choreography career is not really going anywhere, for me, it doesn't sit well with me. And I'm just a person that is like, okay, let's get the ball rolling. And as you said, of like, okay, this can't work, let's find a solution. I think there's always a solution to something, whether it be fighting for that thing, walking away from that thing, you know, trying something new. I think there is some form of solution to everything. So I'm like, I've got this free time. I'm being paid by the show. You know, I can then fund my own stuff, and you know, and go that way, and you know, try new things, put little bits of, you know, performance shows on. You know, I look back at some of that today. I'm like, gosh, what was I thinking? That was awful. But you know, we all start somewhere, and you develop from that. So yeah, I think I've always had that, you know, the drive. But I think, you know, again, you know, working with Christina, working with yourself, Stuart, you know, it's being able to see that, and you know, to see other people's stories, who are out there, who are doing the things. And I think, you know, a person that I also look up to is Drew McOnie, who has just taken over the world in the theatre industry. And it's being able to see that, but seeing it done in such a humble way, and not seeing it in a, you know, you know, I'm here, you know, I'm the big person that you want to go through, and I'm going to treat you like this, you know, X, Y, and Z. But actually understanding it's like, you know, I'm taking that time to work on myself, like, you know, and I want to, you know, build other people up at the same time. As you know, going back, if it wasn't for my drama teacher, I don't know if I would be here. So it's I really want to, you know, whilst doing all of that, to stay humble and to really, you know, appreciate and take, you know, these life snapshots of where I've come from and where I am, because I didn't know, you know, I wouldn't have been here if it wasn't for those people on the outside, or that one person to say, you can do it, you know. And I want to be an advocate for those people, who might not think that they can do it or have a career in this pathway. So you know, I really don't want to take this time for granted. So I think that also is a really thing that drives me as well. Of, you know, these opportunities, I didn't have those opportunities. You know, I didn't know the first. You know, you asked 8-year-old me or 10-year-old me, you know, if you told me about music, said musical theatre, I'd be like, what's that? You know, no, I don't think so. Yeah. So I think that's where my drive comes from. That's got me where I am today.
It's interesting where you've kind of done like performing and choreography side by side at the same time as each other. See, coming out at the end of the training section, you were referencing how we all kind of enter the industry with this like perceived idea that being a performer is down here, being a director or choreographer is up here. I'd love to know how you feel about that now, having done both at the same time. Like, what do you now, as an experienced artist, view as a career? Is it just your credits on paper, or is it actually just making a living from the industry and being artistically fulfilled? How do you view the hierarchy system now?
Yeah, well, I think my view has definitely changed, and I think from having that kind of, you know, tunnel vision, this is it, you know. I remember saying, I'm going to perform until I'm, you know, I've got my electric chair that pushes me forward into the rehearsal room. And you know, here I am now, you know, 10 years into it, and I'm kind of, you know, I'm saying, dancing shoes are off now, and it is now that I know that my choreographic career has started to really, you know, explode essentially out there. I'm like, okay, now I can make that shift, and I'm okay with that. And I think what you said, I think whatever makes you creatively inspired, and that really gives you that joy, you've made it, and you are successful. And it doesn't matter if you are, you know, choreographing a show for, you know, an Amdram company, to, you know, doing music videos all across the world. If that really feeds your soul, and that is like, you know, you can wake up every day and be like, I'm doing what I love, you've made it. you've made it. And I think there is a perception of, within this industry, you have to keep booking a job. You have to do this. You have to do this. Or, you know, I felt it so much of like, you just consider yourself a failure, and it doesn't matter. Like, no one can tell you different of, you know, but I've had it so many times, like, but Chris, you've done X, Y, and Z. I'm like, yeah, but I'm not doing this. I'm not here. When it's actually, no, let me just take that time to actually reflect and allow myself to sit in what I'm doing. I think is such a big thing of, you know, being the original cast of Hamilton, you know, from being part of that, of being a part of this amazing thing, you know, I was still then like, what's next? Being like, rather than be like, no, let me take this all in, you know, let me really understand what this is. Because I think, you know, it's still in the back of the mind of what's the next thing. And so I definitely, where I am now, you know, 10 years on of, you know, being a part of this industry, I think I'm at a place where I'm like, I want to mentally take those pictures and take those snapshots and reflect on what I have, and understand the the struggles, the mistakes, and all of that, where I've learned and kind of built myself up as the person I am right currently, and hope to, you know, I want that to continue going forward. So I'm like, oh my gosh, if, you know, if graduates are watching this now, people who are in education now, you know, I would say, you know, try out all the different things, like not just a performer, you know, go and be, you know, work in stage management, understand how it, you know, how it works from behind the scenes, go and, you know, understand business, go and understand numbers, you know, go and understand how to, you know, be a flyman or something like that, because you just never know where other passions can come from. And also understanding how the industry works from different parts, and especially when I then started looking at things from a choreographic perspective, it was, you know, I was like, oh, you know, being on that table and being like, this is what they're after, you know. And I think you get a mental thing in your head like, they're judging me, they're thinking this of me, and you just kind of automatically, your own worst enemy, like in the room, as a, you know, if you're going for a dance audition, or, you know, you go for a singing audition or something like that. And a teacher said it to me a few years after I graduated, but it's like, they just want you to do well. They want you to make their life easy, you know, and they're rooting for you, you know. They just want you to do the thing. They're not judging you at all. And I think from hearing that, and then from actually being, you know, on a panel, is like, oh my gosh, like my perspective of it has just completely changed. And I think that has helped me, you know, kind of doing the things side to side, has really helped me understand the you know, the performative side as well, of, again, you know, the people skills, understanding what is expected of you, or, you know, just from being like able to ask questions, or to say, sorry, I don't understand that step, can you do that again, you know, rather than being like, you know, we've all been in class when you ask like, is everyone, you know, is everyone okay, does anyone need anything, and everyone's like, no, fine, and then it's a hot mess, and it's like, no, just ask the question. You know, ask that question, you know, you're not going to get cut or be blacklisted from asking a simple question of, what was the step? Or, you know, like, what, musicality wise, what are you after? And I think learning, you know, having that creative brain whilst performing has really developed my practice. I think my movement practice, especially in how I see movement. And for me, I don't really call it dance. You know, I call it movement, because I feel like there's so much more pathways and, you know, creative sectors to that, rather than, I think dance can be very clinical, very hospitalized of dance. That's what it is, when movement is just so broad and so expansive. So I think just being able to do the two, and kind of, you know, see I don't even like list them anymore. They're just, they're all everywhere. And it's just being able to even get a glimpse of what that person does, or, what that sector does, I think really has, helped me personally expand my creativity and my, the way that I see the industry, the way that I see movement as well.
It's interesting because you're not talking like a performer now. You're not talking like a choreographer now. You're talking like a director, an authority figure. And we're going to go on in a minute about CTC and how you've built that up and what you're doing at the moment choreographically. But you're talking there much more advanced than just, as I say, a performer choreographer. And you're right. When you want to go higher and higher, you've got to know about every single person's, bit of work and what they're doing. You need to know about lighting. You need to know, what's happening behind the scenes to be able to help you create to the best. So we're going to go on to that in a second. However, we've heard a lot about how you are. We can obviously see you are down to earth. You're very humble, but we just want to blow your trumpet right now. And we want to go on to, we want to talk about Hamilton, but your credits in such a short space of time. You've done so much. Jesus Christ Superstar, Hairspray, Into the Heights. If there's anyone who should be sort of maybe with a bit of a big head, it's you, because you've just literally from one to one to one to one, you have not stopped. At the same time, you've built up your company and, you've turned into more than a choreographer. You are now a creative director. You are now that authority figure where you're putting on things. But we want to know about Hamilton, because I know lots of people will be going, what? He was in Hamilton? You weren't just in Hamilton. You were in the original cast. So tell us about that, because that must have been an amazing experience, because, there wasn't, for a long time, it was like, oh, new musical. But when Hamilton came about, it was like, this is the biggest musical for a very, very long time. Tell us about that experience.
Well, yeah, it was definitely a one of a kind experience, and essentially was my official West End debut as well. So to be part of this amazing show, and then to have my West End debut on top of that was amazing, and I think that's definitely where one of my dreams were ticked off, of having that moment. Um, and that job taught me so much. Again, I think very, very similar to drama school, was probably one of the hardest shows I've ever done. And kind of, again, understanding movement and understanding taking on direction and what they were after. And I just remember going into that first audition process, and I have to admit as well, I had another thing happen of I was doing In the Heights at the moment, so again, who Lin-Manuel Miranda was and stuff, and then everyone was like banging on about Hamilton. They got a Hamilton audition, and again I was like, what's that? Okay, cool. No, great. I've got one now as well. After a few people had their rounds, after a few weeks and stuff, and after I went into that first round, I was like, I need this job. Not even I need, like, I'm going to get the job. It was that I have to learn from these people. I think it wasn't even, for me, it wasn't even about the, Hamilton itself at that moment. It's like, I have to work with Andy Blankenbuehler because the way that he is describing and the care about the craft and his artwork that he's created, I was like, nah, it's a done deal. It's a done deal. They just don't know it yet. So I think being able to, going through those rounds and then booking the job was just like, I remember getting the call as well. And I kind of like fell to the floor of like, oh my gosh, like, are you kidding? Are you absolutely kidding? Like, this is, 4.5 years of my life striving for this moment. So it was just like amazing, amazing. And just being part of that show of, and I think again that the care of it, and I really like to work with shows that really have the artistry. And I think if anyone who sees that show is just like, it is just so tight, it just works regardless of anything. If anything were to happen, it would still be incredible because the script in itself is good, the care and the love is there. It's just a wonderful machine that works. And my role in the show was a swing. So on top of all the love, I had to learn all of these different ensemble numbers. And within the show, it's like about 52 songs and about 48 different dance numbers. And it's, again, you learning that choreography on one side and the other side, knowing all the cannons and all that kind of stuff. And I just think being able to grow in that way as well, of understanding the way that my brain works, and I think working with people who are very supportive, and even if things go wrong, as live theatre does, having people on stage that are like, "I've got you," is such a great thing. So I will always cherish that experience. And I think it was definitely one of those pivotal points where just like my whole mantra changed and kind of evolved from that. And I think getting to work with Lin-Manuel again, I think because he came to watch the show. So when I did In the Heights, I did the last end of it. So he kind of watched the show. We all kind of said hi, all that kind of stuff. Took a picture. But this is like when we got to really work with him. And I'm really bad with people of authority and people who I deem as like, wow, you're amazing. So I go really shy and just say the stupidest of things. So I was like that person, like, hey, hey, like from the distance, where you got people being really chummy with him. I think I would do that now, absolutely. But I think now I was so starstruck and being like, wow, like you all are incredible. That makes me just go like this. But I, just witnessing, them all in the room, like the creativeness. And there was a time when we did our first sits probe, and Lynn was on the table and he was crying, like he was sobbing from it. As I think it was just nice to see that, like everything that he's worked for, gone from Broadway, and then he's come over to here, and now his show is like on the West End, and hearing that and seeing that. And I think I just, again, humble people, working with them, and just witnessing their kind of, their pathways just exploding out into what it is. And I think, just being part of that amazing show that has so much heart is, I will remember it always, 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 always. And I think that's where my movement evolved and kind of changed, from working with those creatives as well. So it was amazing, incredible.
I wonder if working on that show almost felt like a merging of worlds for you, because obviously it's so like commercially influenced while being musical theatre. And I feel like it's kind of like marked this start of a new scene of theatre, where then like we've had like Anne Julia, Jamie, etc., that have then been more commercially influenced. Did that feel like a merging of worlds for you, being in that cast?
Absolutely. I think when people say Hamilton, it's like, oh yeah, it's a rap hip hop musical. When actually it's not. There is so many influences in there of, yes, you do have hip hop in there, but you've got contemporary, you've got Broadway jazz in there, you've got influences from tap in there, and it's just like, what I really loved is it was an amalgamation of different styles to create this new original thing. And I think, having, seeing that new musical have its stamp, be, something about, Alexander Hamilton, we're talking about history lesson here. but making it into something that is, it is what it is, another timeless musical that is out there and that has paved the way for other musicals there at the moment, I think was just so amazing to witness and to be part of. So yeah, it was just like, oh right, so you can mix styles, you can do that. So yeah, I think that was a really great thing to be part of, and again had a massive influence on myself as well. Just yeah, witnessing that and knowing that it was possible. I think that's a big thing of, it was possible for something like this to be a big hit, in the UK about American history essentially. So yeah, it's just kind of taken it by storm.
Go on, Bailey, go on.
I was going to say, I'd love to ask, where you mentioned like the history within that piece as well, how much focus was put on the history within the rehearsal process? Because I was trying to wrap my brains yesterday of like any other musical theatre show that's like as rooted in the history as that. See, we can look at something like Les Mis that's set in like a historical period, but it's not necessarily historically true. The only thing I'm sure there's something probably glaringly obvious I'm missing, but the only thing I could think of that's like as historically accurate is like Evita. How much focus was put on the history within your rehearsal process?
Well, we were given a tote bag of a massive book that kind of was the history about Alexander Hamilton about that time, but also the way that Lin-Manuel had kind of came up with the concept. And I think that was really great to, give us that amount of, knowledge to be able to really research and understand kind of that time frame, what they were after as well, and how they wanted to tell the story. But you could tell from the direction of even the movement quality, even though the movement quality, is very, very contemporary, very new style, very, where we are today, there were elements of the historic culture within it. And you could tell that they, like that creative team, you could tell that they had researched, they had worked years and years on what this is. So, whilst, we have to put the show up in 6 weeks, I think, again, those little nuggets of information that we got, understanding like who Aaron Burr was, and what his side of the story was, understanding, again, I think a big thing that what the show plays on is about immigrants who went over to, somewhere different and created who they are today. And I think that's definitely a big point of where history always repeats itself, of those people, who work hard, who strive and say, you're saying this to me, but, I'm going to get here. This is the goal. And I think that's the entirety of what the show is. So kind of to understand that and to see that on top of all the detail, that they bring to it, I think is fascinating. And I don't think I've been, there are very few shows that I've been part of who bring that culture and bring that history to it with such detail, where we knew, every breath that we made, every step that we took, there was a purpose behind it, and we understood what that meant. And how it would affect the show. And I think, that's like where like true art form work kind of creates itself. Because if you look at the movement within the show, there's no backflips in there. No one's doing no kicks or box jumps. No one's doing, or your hip hop freestyle in there and all that kind of stuff. You've got a lot of people who are walking around the stage, who are having you can tell that they're all having an opinion and driving the story forward just by peering into the scene. By, you know, we were told that they want, you know, 60-70% energy and 100% intention. So, you know, we went on stage to do a clean mark, essentially, but the intention was driving the narrative. And I think that's just amazing, you know, and works so well because, you know, it's about the story and it's about the detail of what they're trying to say. Yeah. So a long-winded answer to that question of yours.
It's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating, isn't it, Bailey?
It really is.
God, yeah. I mean, I could just listen. I could have literally just listened to you for ages there. So, are you saying then when you did Jesus Christ Superstar, you weren't given Bibles and told to read that? Can you imagine?
No, you know what? Even the great thing about Jesus Christ Superstar was
that's my favorite musical, by the way. I love it. I loved it when I came and saw you. I watched you. You did the open air. It was
open air. Yes,
amazing.
I think even with that, I think with how the director saw it was, you know, as it's the final days of Christ. You know, there was no Bibles. You know, and we're looking at it at a place of where he didn't even know what was going to happen to him, and what was foreseen. And even like, you know, we speak about Christianity, but we're actually talking about Judaism. You know, Jewish faith that's there. You know, the King of the Jews, and kind of, you know, we see Christianity now, but it's a very you know, regardless of religion, I think we're looking at this pinnacle point of how, you know, how things are at the moment. We can, as people, create a star, can't we? We can create someone to go viral, and then we can also choose when
bring them down.
Exactly that, and I think that's, you know, with this staging of Tim Sheeder and Drew McOnie's work, of that's the pinnacle of what it is, and I think that's the pinnacle of what we see in human history throughout our entire time. Of, you know, we have these people who are always at the top, and then somehow they're pulled down. And
Michael Jackson, he was. Do you know what I mean?
You know, where history repeats itself, and yes. I think that's what I really love about this, you know, adaptation that they've created. Of, you know, it's not religion is one thing, and religion's a thing in itself, you know, which is, you know, great. Faith is great, you know, in my opinion. You know, faith is fantastic, but then the way that we see certain things and we put certain things on a hierarchical kind of podium, that's when it is, you know, well, great, I'm gonna go kill this person for you because you told me to, or let's start a war because of X, Y, and Z. And it's like, surely all religion, you know, we're going off to a different topic now, but, you know, it all stems with love and treating others as you would want to be treated. But I think we kind of can lose sight of that at times. But again, I just find that fascinating of, you know, having that understanding that, you know, the history behind it, and understanding the connection of, you know, when we think about that, it is like the Bible. We think about that, but actually, what would it must have been like before that happened? And, you know, it's my mind then goes like, oh my gosh, you know, all these different things, and so interested in all of it. But I just find, you know, that kind of artistry and artistic way of creating pieces is so interesting, and where it is not just about the 5, 6, 7, 8, it's about the bigger picture, and making people think as well, you know, coming away from Hamilton and being like, you know, gosh, like, I didn't know that all of this stuff happened. And even like Alexander Hamilton wasn't that famous, you know, he wasn't that person that you would learn about it at school. But, you know, Lynn took this person and then has made him, has told his story essentially in his own way. I definitely think, with Jesus Christ Superstar, it's the same thing of, we're telling a story from a neutral, trying to a neutral perspective where people can take on different things and feel different things from watching it, rather than, this is the one route. It's about this and this only, where there's so much to it, which I love that kind of, those shows, and that kind of artistry is like, yeah, love it. Absolutely love
it. When I came and saw you, because I also had a friend, Neil, who was playing the guitar in it. And it was just being outside of it, sort of starting light and ending dark, and with the lights, it was phenomenal. I always think, if you can do something different with West End, do it. And having it open air, it was just phenomenal. Let's get on to then, because we've only got you for a certain period today, because you are a busy boy, which we're going to talk about what you're going off to do in a minute, and what you're doing at the moment in a second. But let's talk about CTC. Is that Christopher Tendai Company? Is that what it stands for?
Christopher Tendai Company, yeah.
Yes. So tell us about that, because that's gone from, I remember when you first started sort of putting out the idea of having your own company, and ironically, it always comes possibly before people think people should be starting their own company. And I always say, just when you're thinking about it, start doing it. And you did it when perhaps you probably didn't have time to do it. You were going off, still performing, touring all over, but you built it up. And that sort of that kind of initial period of getting through that period, sort of, it was like you did all the hard work in between all your performing, and then you there's been a period where suddenly you went, right, I'm concentrating on this. And before I knew it, you had a residency at where is it? You had the residency at?
We used to have a residency at Theatre Peckham.
At Theatre Peckham, and now people might go, oh well, Theatre Peckham, what's Theatre Peckham? But the very fact that you were thinking about, I don't know how that came about, but the fact that you were thinking of getting some kind of residency, and just the way it's, CTC is building, it's like I can see in the future, very big things for CTC. The way you create shows, you take new sort of stories, it seems, and it's fantastic. Tell us about it. Where are you up to there, and how does the whole sort of going from that choreographer to then being in charge properly? How has that been?
Yeah, so gosh, CTC has been around for sixth year now, and actually, it kind of came about when I was doing Hamilton, and that kind of I think it was 2000, just coming into 2018, where I wanted to kind of formed itself really from doing another kind of concept video, which was stemmed around mental health, and kind of I think a love letter to my anxiety throughout the industry, essentially. And I think just kind of working with friends who gave up their time to create this concept video, I was like, it just really feels like a company vibe. And I think kind of from that, I was like, yeah, you know what, let's try. And it's just kind of been a build up, and I think it is, as we've been talking about, you just gotta do it, because if you don't, then you just never know what can happen. And the way we've kind of evolved, we kind of started out as we would do little performances here and there, bits and bobs, and then kind of evolved into started to create new theatre work. And you know, over the period of time, we're at a place now. We've created 3 new pieces of work. Our first piece was a piece called Identity, where, you know, I think kind of taking inspiration from Hamilton, essentially, kind of looking at how we can merge different styles that might not be a fit and kind of see how it works. So for us, you know, we're a dance theatre company that kind of works a lot with different dance styles of, you know, jazz, ballet, Afrofusion, and commercial elements, whilst, you know, making sure that the performer has to understand, you know, have an acting foundation and understand that to be able to act through dance. And then we work a lot with spoken word as well. So we've kind of put these kind of forms that have, you know, kind of been a separate thing, kind of, you know, seeing how it merges together. And I think over the years, we've really started to find our formula, and our unique identity with that. Within our shows, we want to spark important conversations through narrative movement, and that's kind of like our ethos. So we work a lot with championing mental health awareness, championing the LGBT plus community, and also championing diversity within our industry. And I think a big passion of mine is to showcase that it's not hard. It's not hard at all. And it's about, you know, expanding, and, you know, we're always learning. And I think that's a really big thing. So within our shows, I make sure that we have, you know, we've had mental health awareness training. So all of our members, performers and creatives have gone through that training to really delve and understand further within the, you know, the motif, the text that we're looking at. We had another show called Inked, which stemmed around trans relationships within the current climate, and I think most importantly showing the joy of that. And I think that was a really unique and wonderful show that we created to again, to continue to learn, to grow, and to tell these stories. We recently done an adaptation of Alice in Wonderland called Wonderland in Alice, which premiered at Theatre Peckham last April, where we kind of look at this world of Wonderland within Alice, and rather than being this kind of mythical, you know, world full of wonders and mystery and just wackiness, where actually this Wonderland is internal to all of us, where we all have our own internal Wonderland of finding ourselves, understanding ourselves. And I think, you know, understanding that that's okay to not have all the answers, where we kind of, you know, eradicate these, you know, the binary constraints that we have on all of us of, you know, time, laws, what we're told is right and wrong, and how that's kind of evolved over a period of time of, you know, there are a lot of things that are important, you know, in Victorian era to where we are now, and what is seen as, you know, right and wrong. So we really wanted to delve and explore within that. And now Wonderland is coming back, but in a new musical adaptation of it, where we've collaborated with British Youth Music Theatre. So we're actually working
Is this an exclusive? Are you? Does anyone know this yet?
Yes, it is out there. It is out there.
Oh.
Tickets are on sale.
Oh, I was thinking we were getting a 3-week podcast exclusive. When's that happening? When's that happening?
So it's happening mid-August, so 17th and 18th of August, at Bolton, at the Octagon Theatre in Bolton. Yeah, we're collaborating with British Youth Music Theatre and creating this, you know, brand new musical with young people. We've got about 30 to 35 young people, where they get to create, you know, this hopefully new musical that will hopefully go on after this. And I think for me, I'm so ecstatic that we get to do that by, you know, a love of mine is giving back. So being able to create a space for young people who are passionate about exploring, these topics, and wanting to kind of delve into create new work is it's going to be really special. It's going to be really, really amazing to kind of create the kind of version 2 essentially of this show. So kind of going into that, and I know you mentioned about what it's like to be an artistic director, a creative director as well. And another thing that I have been, my eyes have opened, and I think this is where you have to be aware, have an awareness of all what everyone needs to do in their sectors to make something work. And this goes into like PR, understanding PR companies, getting the right promotion, even like social media, understanding what hashtags to use, when to post, making sure that that making budget plans so everyone has a specific budget for their sector. And for me, I've invested a lot of my own money into my work, to kind of get it out there and for it to be seen. So just to understand what that feels like as well, and to be essentially the producer as well of a show, on top of choreographing, on top of being the creative director. I think that there's so many elements that I have also learned whilst having the company, and putting these shows on, of what goes into a show. And my gosh, there is so much where if you're in from one element, you see it from that perspective. But I think when you do cross over these different ways, there's so much that goes into it, and so much thick skin you need to have. Oh my gosh, from it. So I think that I'm so happy, I'm so grateful from, again, being able to learn from that, learn from being on the job, learning from the stresses, learning from people say, Chris, are you okay? I'm used to go, ask me that in a few weeks. But then being able, there is nothing, again, I think this is why, I'm so ready to, cross over into that choreographer and really focus on the company, is when you see your own work on stage, there is nothing like it. And I think for me, there is a bigger, I get even bigger butterflies than when I was performing, of seeing that, seeing a part of yourself on the stage or in front of you, or it's on screen or anything like that. You always leave pieces of yourself within this work, and just to see that, it is, there's nothing like it. So I'm forever hooked on it. We'll always go back for more. But yeah, just in terms of where CTC is headed, I'm really excited for the journey and where we are heading at the moment. And I think it's from wanting to get stuff out there all the time and do all of that, I'm really allowing it all to sit and to marinate, and for it to really evolve by itself at the moment. So again, taking those mental pictures of where it is now, where it started from.
Speaking of those sort of like pressures and stresses of putting on your own productions, I wanted to ask you, what is your experience in like getting your work reviewed? Do you look forward to hearing what people have thought that comes along? Or is those reviews something that you really are like stressed about, and how do you deal with those stresses of like someone is going to watch this and review it? How's that experience been for you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think I've heard so many opinions of being like, some people that don't even read the reviews, some people, take it with a pinch of salt, some people, really rely on it. And I think I am aiming to be a person that doesn't really care about reviews, but I think for new work especially, reviews are the pinnacle point of, is your work going to continue on, how you are seen. You've got to use those reviews for, your websites, your reels, if you're being interviewed by, producers and all these kind of people, reviews are important to a point, I would say. And I think especially for having new work, for me, yes, it's like I am intrigued to see what people have said about me and have said about the work. And kind of, you're hoping and praying that it's nice so you can kind of use it to climb the ladder, essentially. However, I think
Have you ever had a bad one? Have you ever had a bad one?
Yes.
Oh, no.
Well, not like a horrific one. But again, if someone says, "Oh, I had one about identity," and actually it was very funny. We got 3 stars for it, and it said lacked identity. So from that, it's like, okay, the show's identity, and it says lacked identity. When it's like, ugh, like even like a little, again, it's like fair, that. And then when you read the review, it's like actually you're just looking at the wowzer kind of moments, not really understanding the context of what the show is. So again, it's like, and then when you research some of these reviewers who are out there, you're like, okay, fine, your opinion of what you've said. I think I've been fortunate, like no one has, really slated me or anything like that. But I got a recent one for Closer to Heaven. I've got people saying, absolutely love the choreography, it's the highlight of the night. And then I got one about, Christopher Tendai's clunky choreography. And suddenly already I was like, oh. But I'm like, you know what? And then you research the review and you're like, I get that because, if you saw, that musical in 2001, it's a different thing. And what I'm bringing to the table, especially as a global majority choreographer, where I'm going to bring elements of, Afro beats, potentially mixing in with contemporary and all that kind of stuff. To certain people aren't going to like that. And, it's at the end of the day, people like different things, which is part of it,
Definitely. What you'll find, I think, is the bigger you get, people like to, once you get too big for some people's opinions, that's when the bad reviews often will come alongside the good ones, whether it's good or bad. People will try and just take you down, whatever, because it's obvious you're going like that, and you are a very humble, you're a beautiful person, and often if they can't find fault in the person, then they'll look for other reasons. They'll try, negative people will always try and look for something. But I think it's personal development, which will get you to that point where you do not, it doesn't matter. That's their opinion and you can respect their opinion. But I don't know if I could. I think I'd go mental. I think I'd go find that person. I mean, do you know what I mean? Like, how dare they? Someone, but sometimes they don't even mean it to be. It can be in your own head that like you say, clunky. Clunky could mean something. To them it might mean something different to what you've taken it as. But yeah, I don't know if I could handle that. I really don't. So you just mentioned Close to Heaven. So tell us, what are you doing now, and what does your sort of future hold? Because you've mentioned the name Drew McOnie a couple of times. The fact that you're working with him and you've got a good relationship with him, it's just such a massive thing. But yeah, tell us about Closer to Heaven.
Yeah, so Closer to Heaven is currently playing at the Turbine Theatre. And is on until the 27th of July, and it's been amazing. Like the show is really fun. It's based on the music of the Pet Shop Boys, and they actually came to watch a few weeks ago, which is amazing. And yeah, the show is just wacky and silly and will get you laughing, get you giggling, and it's just a bit of fun, whilst it, and highlights definitely important topics. It's a really fun night out. We've transformed. If you've not been to the Turbine Theatre, it is literally part of Battersea Power Station, and is like a tunnel under the train station. But kind of what we've developed with it, and the producer Paul Taylor Mills, who is the artistic director of the theatre, we've kind of turned it into a big 2001 nightclub. So it's like, as soon as you go in, like, it's, you're going to have a good time. And the cast are amazing. You've got really amazing names in there, including Francis Ruffle, who was the original McOnie in Les Mis, and has kind of had an extremely incredible career. To be working with these people is amazing. So yeah, I think it's so great I think, even though I feel like for me, I've trying to master being two places at once. So whilst being on tour at the moment, it's been great to kind of leave a piece of me behind in Closer to Heaven back in London, to have there. So it's been really great. It's been really great, and I think it's been a really pinnacle moment for me in my career now, to be seen in the kind of the commercial creative sector, to have my work out there. And we've done things like West End Live, which has been amazing, which was a few weeks ago. And even being in shows, like, I've never been part of West End Live before, but then to have thousands of people watch choreography in Trafalgar Square has been amazing. So that's going really, really well, and had some really lovely reviews and people mention about it. We've had Boy George go and watch it. We've had Trevor Nunn go and watch it. So it's just been like all these fantastic, amazing people witnessing the work, which has been great. And we've got our local fans as well who go and watch it all the time, because it's just feel good. It's a really feel good vibe about the show. So you can still get tickets if you want, through the Turbine Theatre website. And I am now just been announced that I am co-choreographing now with Drew McOnie's original adaptation on Cake, the musical, which essentially is about the Marie Antoinette story, and how kind of the French Revolution started. And it's kind of a mix between Hamilton and Six with the music. And they've had some really great runs and kind of workshop runs. And yeah, now it's going to the Other Palace, which opens at the beginning of September through to November, which is going to be really, really exciting to kind of, create some additional choreography on top of what Drew has made. So yeah, it's really, really exciting. So I'm excited to get stuck into that in the next few weeks.
How we're going to go on to the final question in a minute, which Bailey loves to ask, but just very quickly, Drew McOnie, what for people who don't know him, he's obviously a bit of a ledge now, even though he's so young. How did you get that opportunity to be doing that with him? As in, why do you think he picked you? How did that come? You've done Jesus Christ Superstar, but like, why did he pick you?
It's a good question. Well, I think kind of from our kind of relationship, I've done a few of Drew's shows before, and I used to go to his classes all the time for Pineapple. And I think, stemming exactly what we said about networking. Networking is absolutely where it started. And I think from, that's kind of how I met both Paul Taylor Mills and Drew. I was, Paul saw me in a show in Edinburgh, and I think that might have been the show, Stuart, actually, where I was told not to go. And kind of from there, he, said we're auditioning for In the Heights, and I originally missed the audition in London, but he asked me to self-tape from watching the dance show I was in, and kind of, booked the job from there. And that's how I kind of worked with Drew to begin with. And then I asked him for a coffee to ask about his company when I was, thinking about setting up my own one. And he told me about the McOnie company and how he, created that and where that is now at the moment. Did Jesus Christ Superstar with him. I did Carousel coming out of COVID with him. And it's nice to have that trust from him. And even from with the tour now with JCS is it came from a Facebook message to say, hey, Drew, I'm really interested in working on this show again. I would love to, shadow you. I'd love to, if you've not got a resident choreographer at the moment, I would love to do that.
Get in there.
And then one thing led to another. I shadowed him in the auditions, and here we are now. And I think from seeing that he can trust me with, his work, his creative work, I feel has then gone into, okay, well, we're doing this again. And I feel like I've seen, what you can do. And even, he mentioned when he came to watch the show back in January, kind of whilst we're on tour, and he's, a really lovely thing that he said is it's nice to have a choreographer who is looking after the show and can look after the creative element of it. And I think that's something that I really appreciated. And the fact that he called me a choreographer, I was like, wow, a big thing. So, it's nice to have that kind of validation from the people, that you do look up to and have, worked with over the time. So, it's nice to know that he trusts me and the work. And I think I've shown that. So he knows that I will be able to deliver. Which is great, for people that don't know him, a Broadway West End choreographer who's worked internationally, has got so many Olivier awards, and is now the artistic director of the Regent's Open Air Theatre. It is just insane. So to have someone trust you with that, is amazing. So really excited to get started in it. Yeah.
Awesome. I mean, firstly, congratulations on that. It's incredible. We can see from this episode exactly why he would give you that trust, which kind of ties nicely into where I'm going to go with this final question. We ask this to every guest at the end of their episode, which is, let's say we jump maybe 50 years into the future and you're just announcing your retirement from the industry. Variety magazine are going to pick that up and run a story discussing your legacy within the industry, on the people around you, etc. What would you see on that write-up that you'd be like, that feels like me, that is how I would like to be remembered? What is that quality for you? You would be like, yes, that is exactly what I wanted to achieve.
Yeah, great question. I think a big thing for me is that I have created a new pathway within the industry. I think I would love that, of a new format of how we see movement, especially see how we see artistry, and hopefully there will be, that I've been able to give back and created kind of a stamp on the industry where it has inspired other upcoming artists to follow their dreams, and to kind of say anything is possible. I think I would, if anything like that was mentioned, even if it was like a sentence or something like that, I would be really, really happy, because I feel like I would have fulfilled the duties that I'm here on this planet to do.
What if they said, brilliant career, a little bit clunky choreography?
I'm like, I'll take it. I'll have shifted that word.
Oh, Chris, it's been so lovely to to catch up. It's great always for me to see your progress. I always see your posts on Facebook and Instagram, and it's yes, obviously behind the scenes there's always things going wrong and things, maybe there might be personal things, or there might be sort of standing points where you think, oh, how can I, we're at a standstill, but it always seems from the outside that you are going up, and that is, I always think it's a great thing if you can sort of just always show that positivity, and just basically inspire, and it's been just inspiring today to hear your story, even though I knew some of it. Just to hear sort of the behind the scenes of Hamilton, and just how you're getting sort of CTC, and hearing about your feelings on reviews and stuff like that. It's been amazing. I'll get your thoughts, Bailey, very quickly, and then we'll just ask you to anything you want to promote. But Bailey, you'd never met Chris from before today. What would be your overriding perception of him and his career, would you say?
I think what's remarkable is just the amount of love that is evident you have for like everyone and everything around you and everything you've done. Throughout this whole episode, there hasn't been like an ounce of negativity. Even when you've touched on like little sticky situations, I've never really had a conversation with anyone that has just zero negativity whatsoever. It's incredible how, I guess with like the sticky situations, it's a level of accountability maybe, but you've just got such a unique approach to that, which I think is exactly what is driving you forward. The purity, the authenticity is absolutely unparalleled. I really think you are remarkable for that on an energy level. Obviously creative, all of that is incredible, but that energy underneath is what really drives a career. And I think you're doing such an incredible job of that. That would be my overall takeaway from today.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
We can't wait for this one to go out. Where can our viewers and our listeners follow you? Do you have a website, or is it just social media, or where can they follow CTC? Go on, push whatever you want to push.
Yeah, so for my socials, you can follow me on Instagram at Christopher Tendai, Tendai. If you're a Twitter fan or X fan, you can go at Chris_Tendai. Or you can have a look at my website at www.christophertendai.com. And anything related to CTC wise, you can follow us on Instagram at ctc.co, or you can follow us on X again at ctcco1, or you can go onto our website to see what we're doing at the moment at www.ctcdancecompany.com.
We're going to put all those links down in underneath in the description. Before we end, I just wanted to say, if you haven't seen our latest episodes, our latest guest episodes, then do check them out. We've got episodes with Dax, the founder, co-founder of Base, Christina Andrea, Ian Bannum, lots and lots of past episodes, so do go back, guys, and check them out. Bailey, do you want to just let everyone know what they need to do?
Yeah, so before you disappear, subscribe to the channel, give us a like on the video, turn on your notification bell, let us know down in the comments what you thought of today. Go and check out those links. Thank you for watching. Thank you, Christopher, for this incredible conversation, and we will see everyone next week.